there we go. We'll start.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the September People Policy and Development Committee. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Alison?
Yes, Chair. Apologies for absence from Councillors Steve Gallagher, Councillor Lawson and Leslie Walton.
Okay, that's great. And the second item is disclosures of personal prejudice or interests. Don't think we've got any of those, have we? No. Okay, then the third item is the minutes of the last meeting, which I believe were on the 20th of July. Are we happy with those minutes? Somebody happy to move them?
I'll move them, okay.
Thanks, Jan. And can we have somebody to second that? Somebody happy to do that?
I'll second them, sorry, Chair.
Thanks, Yvonne. Okay, so those are passed. Thank you very much. The fourth item on the agenda is a verbal update on where we are with the development of the young carers strategy. Now, I know Gavin hasn't been very well, so his family come down with COVID, unfortunately. So he did say that he'd asked Igia from YMCA to come along to give us an update, but I can't see that she's on, Alison, is she?
No, and I haven't had a request to send her the meeting request either, so I've not done that because I wasn't aware.
Yeah, Gavin emailed me yesterday to say that he was really unwell. I can give the committee a quick verbal update though. I know that the Young Carers Forum is up and running. It was up and running in July. I think that was in the last minutes actually, but it was up and running in July, and then Gavin went and met with the forum in August. Unfortunately, it was on a day when I was on leave, so I couldn't go. So they've requested us to go back and speak to them. I think it'll be the end of this month, next week or something like that, to talk about how they can then inform the development of the young carers strategy, really. So there's no huge update, but I think Agia was going to give a broader update on the use of the forum for the development of the strategy. But essentially nothing much has moved on really because of August. It's not a great time to get young people together really, for obvious reasons, and the same for us too. So that's really where we are with it. I trust Gavin will be well, hopefully. Hope it all okay in his house, and he can give us a proper update in October. So, okay, is there any questions on that? There's not a huge amount of information within there, but if there's any questions anybody would like to ask. The only other thing I wanted to say about that is if councillors are interested in sort of the young carers and they want to get more involved with that forum, then obviously let Gavin or Gia directly know about that, because I know that's something that Gavin was talking to me about, because I did, for the minutes, I did attend the young carers what's the steering group, strategy development steering group that Gavin put together with some officers, education and so on, and I attended that at the start of September, but unfortunately it was on one of those days where it was so hot that my laptop kicked me out. So the joys of working from the shed, it got so hot in here the laptop shut down, so I missed the end. So I was hoping. So I hope that Gavin was going to update what happened in the end. But I know we talked about that then. Really, is to try and get as many of us in the committee as councillors involved if we can, not just on the committee but outside the committee as well. And that's something also that was tie in with Katie Spendif's item, which we're not talking about today. Which I'll give a little update in the work plan at the end about why that is. But about how children and young people are better connected with decision makers within not just the council but within the council in this instance, and obviously this is an example of that. So and also ties in with the co-production strategy for children's services as well, which we looked at at the start of this year with in terms of the PDC. So yeah, so have a little think about that. I know you're all asked to do so many different things, aren't you? other councillors. But if you are interested, and I can see Jan indicating.
Yeah, if you can just let us know when the dates are, Kerry, I wouldn't mind coming along.
Yeah, well, brilliant, because I know that Gia didn't want us to overwhelm them on the first go, but I think it would be good if I could have one other councillor, Jan. So
Yeah, no problem. Just let me know when it is, Kerry, that's all.
Perfect. We won't make you dress up in wetsuit and jump in rivers again, though.
Well, I usually do things like that. I'm dull enough to do stuff like that. Quite enjoyed it, actually, Gary. It was quite a good day.
Anyway, okay. So that's that item. So if there's no other questions or comments, we're on to item 6, which is the Swansea Council's voluntary strategy development. And I can see Amy is here with us. Amy, thanks for coming along. We know how incredibly busy you are in adult services, so we really appreciate you finding the time to come today. And we were going to have a workshop before this item today, but it's been an unbelievably busy time for adult services, and I think perhaps you can comment at the end once you've given us an update, Amy, about whether it's feasible even for us to do a workshop in next month, given the pressures on yourself and the rest of adult services. But if you could, I'll bring you in at this point, if that's okay, Amy.
Oh, thank you, Chair. That's really helpful, actually, for you to give that context, because I was going to start with the apology to say, sorry, we haven't done the workshop yet. There's two things I want to update you on today, two clear things, but also to let you know that one of our team, James, would have been delivering this today, because just to let you know, more officers are involved in this, but unfortunately he's not very well, so he couldn't attend. So I am presenting his work today, which I don't want to take credit for. So just to let you know, this has been developed. Julia and I are both going to speak to you, if that's all right, because last time I updated you and said that we went to the Welsh Government because we'd secured this volunteering funding as a region, done loads of really good work with it in terms of the toolkits that have been done, the good practice guide, the videos that have been done. So there's lots of really good resources, but we still had some funding left, and we wanted to carry on this work in terms of some more regional approach to volunteering. Went out for a project manager, didn't fill the post. It's quite short-term funding. Had to go back to Welsh Government and say, could you let us use this to second some members of staff from SCVS and Neathport Talbot CVC to do this work? And also, could we recommission some external consultants who did some work around volunteering in the region for us? They came back and said yes to both, which is great. And I might hand straight over to Julia to introduce her bit and to give you a bit of context of what we're doing with this regional project management work, and she can explain, yeah, her role in this as well, if that's okay, Julia, and then come back to me about the workshop.
Thanks very much, Amy, and thanks, Chair, and thanks for having me yet again. Yeah, so the project is the West Glamorgan Volunteering Project, and as Amy said, the project manager role has been split between myself and my colleague Gemma Richards, who usually is Neathport Talbot CVS's volunteer manager, and I'm Swansea CVS's volunteer centre manager. And so we got plenty of experience. It's a really exciting regional piece of work set within the transformation team, and we've been getting our project kicked off with quite a lot of stuff underway already, and we've been meeting with lots of interesting people, lots of people from the regional transformation team, lots of partners, including our own Amy Hawkins, who also made time available to speak to us in these busy times. And we've already started to look at what is going to be a piece of work that'll take us through to the 31st of March next year. The main piece of work from the project is to develop a volunteering strategy and or framework for the region, looking at how volunteering can be developed regionally. So off the back of the success of the volunteering response to COVID, trying to learn lessons of what we did really well there, and to develop our processes regionally to be able to deal with future crises as they will appear. There's a number of different resources as well. As Amy mentioned, there's a huge amount of resources developed in phase 1 On phase 2, we are going to continue developing some. Some are quite timely resources. So some of them, for example, that are being developed and we hope to launch as early as next month are information sheets around, is it volunteering or is it work experience? We've had a lot of conversations regionally about the need for volunteering to be part of workforce development going forward, particularly obviously within health and social care. And we're also developing an information sheet called Is it volunteering or is it a placement, which will answer lots of questions put to us by our local educational establishments as they look for placements for their students, particularly within health and social care, so social work students, for example. And we are hoping to develop an amazing resource, which will take us quite a bit of time, but around volunteering to support care homes, which we know to be something that's really required, and us having to deal with many partners about some of the complex issues around designing appropriate roles that support staff and don't undermine, obviously, staffing, for example. So we've got lots of things that we're currently doing, and all this whilst we are supporting our partners, for example, in Swansea Council with the volunteering strategy work. Is this where you'd like to come back in, Amy, and jump back to me if you need me?
Thanks, Julia. That's great. Yeah, we wanted to give you the context of the regional work, because I think talking about a regional strategy, there's still some discussions about, is this regional for the organisations of Swansea Council, Neath Port Talbot Council and the Health Board? Are we actually talking about it wider? You know, there's a bit of work to do around here, but I think there's certainly looking at the opportunities working regionally brings to us. Not that aside, though, we still are looking for a volunteer strategy for the council. So that won't, you know, sort of, it will support that work rather than hinder or slow it down. So Julia's only part-time as the project manager. She's still in her substantive role as the volunteer manager with SEVS and has offered still her time to work with James and Tony and our team around developing the strategy. So further work has been developed around this, looking at the key principles, what the actual strategy itself looks like, so ensuring that we have feedback from volunteers who already work with us in our organisation, potentially looking at a digital version of this as well, so looking at video interviews and links to sort of the benefits of volunteering. Also looking at our journey, we might not call it that in the final version, but talking about the pandemic and the use of volunteers and how, you know, the big influx of volunteers and direct and indirect, and what impact that's had on both us as an organisation and also our communities as well. And then looking at the vision and the key objectives. And this is where we would like to bring forward this workshop. And we do hope to hold this within either at the next meeting, before the next meeting, we'll need to confirm dates with you as the committee. We think we'd quite like it to be an officer and member committee, if that's okay. Oh, sorry, I'm not sure it then is still unofficially a committee, but, you know, just a meeting with both, so we have the experiences of the teams who already host volunteers. The work outside of this that's still happening is around volunteering mapping and looking at expanding this and ensuring that we have an accurate baseline of volunteers and opportunities that we have within the organisation, but also let us know what's working well as well. So the strategy itself is going to focus on the benefits of volunteering in its many forms as well. Also the environment, our environment of supporting, the conditions of supporting volunteers as well as an organisation. So our commitment to supporting volunteers, any standardised forms, paperwork, induction, application forms, supervision, etc. So all that support and how we do that consistently. Also around the training and support for volunteers and the managers, so individual staff members who are managing volunteers as well, and what functions they have. Also how we're going to recognise volunteers every year, or certainly an aspiration we have. We'd hope as members you support that, but, you know, that's something again for us to work through. And also looking at how the status of the volunteers, particularly those who are long-term volunteers for us, around sort of the references we provide, the training, the development, the support. So all these, the practical processes and procedures. And also really want to be able to have this baseline to assess where we are, to ensure that we can assess the impact of the strategy as well. you know, this isn't just a document that we want to put on a shelf. It's got to be useful for teams to create this culture of volunteering within our organisation as well. And I think the example Julia just gave now, which is the regional work, the focus particularly around health and social care volunteers, and looking at the example of volunteers in a care home. You know we've got real current position now where, you know, we're very stretched in terms of care staff and the impact there, and just looking at the value that can be added as well by using volunteers, but also ensuring those things that Julia's already said about the differences between a staff role and volunteering functions as well. So this is all helpful, happening at the same time. So in terms of next steps, yeah, we want to hold the workshop to discuss some of the questions raised, particularly also to ensure that we have a co-productive approach, both in terms of officers and members. We'll also be doing some background information alongside this, just around the legislation, just ensuring that we're following what we need to, both from a HR perspective, but also Social Services and Wellbeing Act, Future Generations, you know, and other requirements. We're doing some mapping about what other stakeholders need to be involved. Obviously, we've got internal departments, but but also ensuring that we have representatives from groups, particularly focused around ensuring that we look at protected characteristics, for example. You know, so we want to make sure that we're taking this into consideration, and also starting to work on some of the standardised paperwork, because I think whilst workshops and other work will help inform this, I think some of this will also be based on just good practice as well. You know, why would we reinvent the wheel when there's some really good formats out there already? So yeah, so that's in terms of sort of progress and also where we want to go next with it. So sorry if that might feel a little bit repetitive about what we've done before, but I think it's almost just building on what's happened as well, and just to let you know this is progressing.
Great. Wow. I mean, the thing that strikes you straight away is it's such a big piece of work, isn't it? And I mean, it really is huge, isn't it? And so I take my hat off for you guys in tackling this. It's so important, in my opinion. Such an important piece of work, but such a complex one. Any questions or comments from the committee? Anybody? Well, I mean, the comments, the thing, there's lots of interesting stuff in there. I mean, the thing that struck a chord with me is what Julia was talking about in terms of volunteering to support care homes. We're obviously given everything that's happened, is really front and centre on the kind of priorities at the minute in terms of the public consciousness around the pressures on adult services. There's a really interesting piece of work, and I think the volunteers offer so much perspective development work as well, not just in terms of supporting frontline stuff, but supporting the residents of care homes to do other things as well, maybe get them out of care homes where it's possible, all those kinds of things. So, I mean, that was really interesting to hear. And also what you referenced, Amy, to measure an impact of the strategy. Do we have any idea yet, or is it too early to comment on how we might go about doing that?
I would definitely be getting involved in the area of work that James has been working on. If he's here, I'm sure he'd tell you. But I'm afraid he's not very well. But Julia, I don't know if you've had conversations about this.
Yes.
Great.
This kind of piece of work has been successfully undertaken in Monmouthshire and other councils. It's entirely, you're quite right, it's a massive piece of work, but it's entirely doable. What we've got to get to a place is where maybe a function such as HR within Swansea Council counts the number of volunteers that we currently have. That is not undertaken at all at the moment, and that will be so helpful for us as a local authority in a number of different ways. We'll be able to record for the first time who's doing what, where, at what time, but be able to add value to that person's commitment by recording the training that they've undertaken. So making sure that we make reference to their safeguarding training, putting in place, lists of training that they will have undertaken anyway, which will enable them to get a reference, hopefully, in the future. There's lots of ways. I spoke to a lovely gentleman, Colin Goddard, you may know, at West Glamorgan Transformation Board, about data collection. He's got some really great ideas that are completely doable. I think it's just we need really the commitment to get on and do it, and audit what we have. We started that process already, Amy and her team, and just continuing really to find out who is volunteering, because this council has an amazing tradition of having many volunteers in many different departments assisting staff to deliver the best services in the area. So we intend to be able to collect information better, more accurately, so that we can make sure that we know exactly who's doing what, when, and improve that as we go down the road.
Okay, great. Thanks, Julia. I don't want to hog the line, might you? But one of the other questions I was going to ask around the strategy itself is if it's going to sort of, I know you, Julia, you mentioned your basic HR stuff around what, your standards of training, your basic levels and minimum standards of training. One of the challenges with volunteers is making sure they're supported ethically without overloading the bureaucracy on that, so that it becomes almost how to describe it, it puts people off, for want of a better description. I was wondering, is that something that we kind of is in our thinking, or is going to be within the strategy?
I mean, yeah, you're quite right that there is, you have to get the balance right when you're dealing with volunteers. But when we're talking about health and social care volunteering and developing services for the most vulnerable within the community, it is important that we get a baseline and a good quality safeguarding standard amongst our volunteers, and we can evidence that we have actually provided them with that necessary support, which enables them to go forward and do the best they can do in their roles. And it is a different ask. Managing volunteers is very different to managing staff, because, as you've mentioned, there's huge different motivations and sort of legal definitions of what people are and what they're doing. So you are going to need to have people who are trained, as Amy mentioned, in volunteer management within the council to ensure that we do not overstep the mark with volunteers, but that we do hit the mark with volunteers as well. So it is about getting members of staff trained up further to be able to support volunteers the right way. But you do have a lot of people within the community, within the local volunteer centre and other third sector organisations that can help. And we're happy to help.
Great. Okay, lovely. Okay, any other questions, any points from anybody else? Okay, so in terms of that workshop, Amy, because I know you mentioned it needs to be wider than really just a few, a few councillors and a few officers. Really, obviously we've got Julia here from SCVS, and the voluntary sector, the third sector, is going to be really important in this, isn't it? So, have you an idea of how we move forward in terms of organising that?
Yeah, I think James and Julia and Tony have had some talks about this, about what it looks like. I think in the first instance, it probably would just be an in-house thing with officers and members, but it's not, because it would be something we would take out further again. But the regional work will be looking at a much wider basis as well. So I think there will be different opportunities to get involved at different stages. But the workshop we're talking about next is this membership plus any other councillors you think is appropriate, whether there needs to be another PDC join up. Could be, but certainly officers as well. So we'd like to, whenever that works for you, we can put that in as well. Okay. Whether it replaces a meeting or is in addition to or before, I don't know. It's yeah. Previously
we've done them before, and that's worked quite well, because obviously everyone's already planning to be here by 4 o'clock, and so what we've usually done is done them at, say, at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, right, depending on how long you want to do them, and that tends to work quite well. But obviously that would depend upon officer availability as well.
Okay, we'll follow up with Alison afterwards, and we can, we'll make sure that happens.
Okay, great. If you want me to do anything, just let me know.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Really appreciate it. Really interesting work. I mean, I work for the third sector, so I have to declare an interest in some of this stuff. But it really interests me, this stuff. So that's great. Thanks very much for coming along, guys. Really appreciate it. I know how busy you are. Thank you. Okay, we're on to the next agenda item, which is Swansea Council employability provision. I believe Elliot Williams is here to give us an update on that.
Hi everyone. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Carry on, Elliot. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yep. Sorry, Elliot. Carry on.
Hi there. Hi. Elliot Williams here with the Economic Development and the External Funding team. Just a quick update really on the employability sort of agenda. I think at the last meeting I provided a bit of an overview, really, a bit of background in terms of the employability projects and provision that we currently deliver as a local authority, and how we sort of interface with the employability network, which has another sort of 40 plus organisations and providing support throughout Swansea. Since the last meeting, and I think I did touch upon it, that the Camanessa project, which was delivered by us and designed to support those needs furthest away from the labour market. That project has now ended. We are in the process of sort of wrapping that project up and submitting final claims to the funding body. So that was an EU funded programme run in conjunction with the sort of youth service with Ryland Phillips and Gavin Evans. And to be fair, over the life of that project, they were able to support over 620 people, young people, and 130 people into work. The project is regarded across the region as quite a successfully delivered project. It's considering the impact of the pandemic. They were one of the first project teams really to try and get back out in the community and help people as best they could over this sort of last 18-month period. And I think it is going to be a bit of a gap in provision currently. So we are looking to explore sort of other grant funded opportunities as and when they come about, basically. Yeah, so just to make a note really that the team has done really well there with to deliver that project. And on that point, I think again I mentioned perhaps at the last meeting that, you know, in terms of future employability provision, we are looking at other funding opportunities, whether that be sort of contractual arrangement with DWP partners or opportunities, or whether it's through the UK Government's Community Renewal Fund. We have submitted a bid to deliver employability provision through that fund, but we haven't yet found out whether we've been successful, and part of that bid would provide us with the resources we need to deliver an element of support then for the cohort that Camanessa would have been supporting. So fingers crossed that we get the green light from UK Government on that, but still no word on that just yet. And there will hopefully be further opportunities with UK Government's Shared Prosperity Fund, which should be launched later this year. And again, we'll look at opportunities through that fund. For the overall 6 employability projects that we have been delivering as a local authority, we supported over 1,200 people throughout the pandemic, and 500 have been supported into work more recently. And I think this is one of the focus areas we were looking at as part of this PDC, was the Kickstart provision. This is a DWP Kickstart project that we are administering and serving as a gateway and an employer. So a gateway being where we establish paid placements with external businesses and SMEs, as an employer where we establish placements ourselves within the council. And to date, we've been able to set up around 260 placements with 32 employers. And we've also set up 60 internal placements. At the moment, at any one time, we've got 50 participants on the books. And they're young people aged 16 to 24 who are benefiting from a 25-hour a week fully paid work placement. And crucially for them, it's a paying job, but also gives them valuable experience in that sort of area of work that they're looking to go into. So at the moment, we've got placements currently in building services, parks and waste management. And there's a range of placements with external employees across all sorts of sectors. We are also now looking to set up some placements in social services with the support of Tim Moss and the Swansea Working Team. I thought perhaps something to just quickly touch upon in terms of the employability landscape is perhaps just snapshot of sort of the current trend, or some of the issues we're currently facing, I guess. And obviously, over the last 18 months with the COVID pandemic, the employability landscape's changed quite a bit. And whilst furlough hasn't ended, we are facing a situation. I mean, that furlough is due to end at the end of the month. But we are facing sort of a situation where there's an abundance of job vacancies, and through our employee liaison officers across the project, we're seeing plenty of vacancies, but we're not seeing many people coming through the door at the moment, the last few months, to sort of work with people, help provide any mentoring support and training support to benefit them from those vacancies. It's not an issue faced solely by our projects, but Job Centre and other external provision partners are sort of facing the same difficulties. So it's kind of an interesting place to be at the moment, where there seem to be plenty of jobs out there across various sectors, but the people aren't there or aren't engaging with us to access those opportunities. It's something that may change. Currently there's sort of shortages in some key areas around HGV, as well documented in the press, construction, hospitality, and we might see a surge of participants that are coming through our projects when furlough ends, but we are also slightly apprehensive. We're all geared up in terms of having staff in place to sort of work with more people to provide that support. But we are slightly apprehensive as to what things are going to look like over the next 6 weeks, because we might find that individuals have perhaps become accustomed to the current situation and maybe still apprehensive about re-entering the job market. So that there may be more work we have to do proactively to promote the projects and promote the opportunities and attract interest, should we say, and that sort of thing. As I just noted, I guess there are labour shortages in health and social care, retail, hospitality, HGV, driving. And as part of this, in response to this, we are working with the regional learning and skills partnerships to set up events. Initially, the RLSP has been setting up events in Carmarthenshire, but we will be setting up some events in Swansea to promote opportunities and also develop some pathways so that people can see what they need to do to get to that end goal, that end job. And we've made links with the likes of Owens Transport, for example, to try and see if we can work with them to try and get people into those opportunities to help fill those gaps. We've got various initiatives running, such as a recruitment fair for ATG, the operator of the arena. So we'll be looking to do some recruitment initiatives there, and there's further work around some of those bids I mentioned earlier in terms of developing perhaps a pathway programme. That's probably just a bit of a flavour really of what we're kind of seeing at the moment. If you've got any questions, by all means.
Okay, thanks, Elliot. I know that Yvonne's had her hand up for quite some time. So Yvonne, do you want to come in?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. It's up to video calling.
That's okay. Thanks very much. Thanks, Chair. Elliot, I was wondering, there were a couple of things you said. Okay, one of them was about the mentoring support. Is it that you're looking for organisations or people to provide mentoring support, or?
We provide that as part of the employability project. So we have employment mentors within communities who work within workways, and they're all geared up to provide that mentoring, employment mentoring support. What we're not seeing is we're not seeing a throughput of referrals from any sort of participants from any sort of partner organisations or job centre and things like that. So people aren't coming through the door needing that support at the moment. We're sort of reliably informed that there's quite a significant number of people, perhaps on universal credit and things like that with job centre, but for whatever reason, the referrals aren't coming through to us. It's perhaps worth noting as well that there is a new mandated programme with DWP called the Restart Programme, And that could have a bit of a bearing really on our employability projects, because anyone who's eligible for the Restart programme, the work coaches within DWP will, where possible, mandate those individuals to be referred to the Restart programme as opposed to our employability projects. And we have seen instances, only a handful, where some staff, some participants or individuals looking for employment support are already engaged with one of our projects, and they've been told, right, you've got to, you've got to start with another provider because that's been mandated by Job Centre. But we are working with the Job Centre and the Restart programme suppliers, or supply chain, to try and make sure that we're not sort of competing for the same individuals, and we're trying to make sure we put the right support in place. And if we've built up, we've supported people to a certain extent, we want to kind of finish the job, really, try and help them.
Thanks, Chair. Can I have another question, please, Chair?
Yeah, quickly, yes.
The other question is, you mentioned the gateway. How does someone become involved with the gateway? Or an organisation?
Yeah. Sorry, when you say involved, as an employer, or?
Yeah, let's say, yeah. If someone wanted to register with you as you're the gateway, and they wanted to have someone on the Kickstart project, how would that work? What would they have to do?
They can contact us. We put an email mailbox set up, kickstart@swansea.gov.uk. So kickstart@swansea.gov.uk. So if they drop that email address a line to say they're interested in setting up placements or what have you, yes, we'll pick that up and we can have that dialogue with the business then.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Jan.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Kerry, there's such a lot of talk about HGV drivers and the shortage and whatever. I was just wondering, is there an initiative out there to help them to get through the HGV course? Because it's quite an expensive course to do. And I think probably that might be putting a lot of people off, applying to do it. But we're desperate for these people. So I was just wondering if there's an initiative out there or some sort of help to get them through the course that they could pay back over a period, maybe, or something. It's just
yes,
that would help them get on the ladder in the first place.
Yes, there is something we're working with the RLSP on. I understand there's some funding. I've been made aware of it the last couple of days that people can access. So we'll be tapping into that where possible. And if participants or individuals looking to become to go into HGV driving, then if they're eligible for our projects as well, we have budget within our projects to try and help them. Albeit it is an expensive course, it's quite limited what we can do. So that is something we're looking at, is trying to tap into this new pot of money that's available.
Great. Thank you, Elliot.
Thanks, John. Okay, any other questions for Elliot? Elliot, I was going to ask you a question about CamNESA. Obviously, it's with the end of CamNESA, there's a bit of a gap in our provision there, and my understanding was that CamNESA was for sort of more vulnerable people. Is that correct?
Yeah, 16 to 24-year-olds, sort of furthest away from the labour market. Yeah.
So we've got a significant hole really in our provision. And I think you mentioned that there's a number of different departments involved with CamNESA. You mentioned Gavin Evans there and a couple of different people. And you then mentioned that we put some potentially we get some funding for the Future Prosperity Fund, and we've got bids in for other things. I was just wondering if we'd sort of done some kind of impact assessment on what the loss of CamNESA would mean in terms of.
I suppose that's something we're working on at the moment as well, in terms of looking at supporting future bids and things like that, to sort of show the impact and the evidence of need really for that service. In the short term, I think we're going to have to try and flex whatever funding we have available in our services to try. I mean, it is tricky sometimes. The European funding, you've got to be, there's only there's particular people you have to work with, I guess, in terms of eligibility. Where possible, we'll try and flex things to sort of support people where we can. But yeah, there is going to be a bit of a gap there. But yeah, that's something we can certainly bring back to in terms of the assessment.
Yeah, I think it would be really useful for us to see that, because as you say, these are the most vulnerable young people, and I think, well, yeah. Anyway, okay, that's really appreciate that.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah.
And then finally, just a question. I know you mentioned a couple of ways that we're trying to increase sort of people coming through the door to meet these sort of labour shortages or projects. I just wonder, is there anything else that we could be doing in terms of maybe marketing or anything into to increase those numbers coming through the door, or is it?
Yeah, I think, just on that point, I should have mentioned as well. Many of our employability mentors and employee liaison officers have been working remotely by and large for the last 18 months. So over the last couple of months, we have now started to go back out with risk assessments in place to community venues to try and drum up sort of interest and start marketing. Each member staff generally has a geographical area that they will market, and they'll work with comms colleagues as well. So we will be sort of ramping things up a little bit more, and hopefully we'll be able to sort of generate a bit more interest and throughput. We have been impacted, I suppose, by not being able to be out in the community as much as we have been. So subject to risk assessments in place, we are getting back out now. So hopefully things will change a little bit there.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Thanks, Elliot. Okay.
Thank you.
I can't see anybody else indicating. It sounds like you got childcare challenges there, Elliot, as well. So thanks very much for coming along and speaking to us, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much for that. Okay, we're on to the final item on the agenda, which is the work plan 2021-2022. So the next meeting will be on 27th of October, and Katie Spendiff will be coming to talk to us about the Children and Young People's Rights Scheme, which was postponed from today because they weren't in a position to really come back and speak to us. But the consultation with children and young people and with all the stakeholders finished at the end of July. So Katie, and I know there's been a report put together, so Katie should have something to bring to us for the next month. We also have it looks like we'll have the Swansea Council Volunteering Strategy Development and the Young Carer Strategy to update on for the next month as well. Okay, any questions or queries about any of that? If not, just before you all go, I think remiss of me, I apologise, I should have done this at the start of the meeting, but I believe this is Councillor Matthew Jones's first PDC with us. Is that right, Matthew? Unless I'm having a moment.
I think I did one in June. Was there one in June? Maybe.
Or maybe missed the last one. Well, okay.
Yeah, I was on holiday. I was on leave, Chair, for the last one. Sorry.
I did check the minutes and you weren't there, so I thought perhaps this was your first. So don't worry, I was going to say welcome, but it doesn't matter if you've already been here already. That's fine.
No problem.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody for your attendance. Thanks to Democratic Services for their help as usual, and all the officers for giving us their time. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you all in October.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Kerry. Ta-ra.
Cheers.